reviewing Pride and Prejudice, both the Everyman's Library Edition and the novel. I love the Everyman's Library Edition, especially for the price that they charge. It's kind of cheap for what they give you. I mean, firstly, it looks great. At least I think it looks great, with or without the cover. Without the cover, it's a cloth-bound book, but it has a nice antique kind of look. And also, it has sewed binding and acid-free paper. And the price is just as cheap. The price is the same or sometimes even cheaper than a lot of books that don't have acid-free paper and only have glued binding. So if you're buying classics and you're buying hardcover, or you're spending anything more than 15 to 17 American dollars, please choose the Everyman's Library Edition. I recommend that you choose the Everyman's Library Edition if you are buying hardcover books between 15 to 20 American dollars. But of course, it depends on your budget and the title. The Everyman's Library doesn't have all the titles, and it's mostly between 15 to 20 American dollars. Okay, anyways, on to the story. I love Pride and Prejudice. I first read the unabridged version as a child. I read it so many times, and I've watched the Keira Knightley version, the Keira Knightley movie a few times as well. And I think the thing that's great about Jane Austen's novels, like not just Pride and Prejudice, is that it's not just a romance story, it's also a commentary on society and marriage and love. She shows all the different kinds of marriages and different kinds of, the mindset at that time. Another thing is that her writing is not really hard to understand. Like, she's definitely easier to understand than, say, Charles Dickens, at least to me. I tried to read A Christmas Carol, and I stopped a few chapters in, and I'm like, I have to read a few more classics before I can understand Charles Dickens. But Jane Austen, even if she came before Charles Dickens, is actually easier to understand. Aside from the social commentary on marriage and love, it's mainly, the love story at least, is mainly between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, a love-to-hate kind of romance, and I think it's one of the first, it's the novel that made the hate-to-love romance genre a popular one. I want to talk about the culture and society in Pride and Prejudice. I think in Western society, they've progressed a lot from there, and these things really don't exist anymore in Western society, like the dowry system and the shaming of women for running away and expecting her to marry the guy she ran away. But in a lot of societies, including Indian society, like the one I come from, this is still very prevalent, the dowry and the shaming of women and expecting her to marry the guy she ran away with or have a family shamed. I'm not saying this happened in all Indian families or anything, but I'm just saying it still significantly exists. Gradually we're progressing, but it still exists. Because this was written in the 19th century, of course the romance part, as in the physical romance part, is not exactly present. It's more of a emotional kind of romance. But that doesn't ruin the book at all. It's still a great read. And the characters are really great in this one. Like Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, and I actually like Elizabeth's mom as a character. Like, maybe as a person she's not the best of people, but as a character she's great. And on some level you understand her fear that her daughters would end up, that her and her daughters would end up homeless. So you actually understand her desperation to get her daughters married well. Mr. Collins, I think, is the character that's the hardest to interpret, because you can interpret him as someone that means well and really does want to help, but he's silly and lacks social grace and social etiquette. Or you can interpret him as all his well-meaning gestures as a pretense. Charlotte Lucas, her decision is more controversial, but personally I understand her decision especially looking at her position. I don't know if I would have made the same decision in her position, but I understand why she did. Lydia, oh my god, Lydia is probably the silliest. But she's also, I also understand her. She's only a 16-year-old girl. She wasn't raised that well, especially with the mother that she had. She lacked maturity. especially given her age and upbringing. I think that's all I have to say about Caroline Bingley. She's also a tough one. I mean, I guess she's the mean girl of this book. But even her age is not clear, so it's a bit too hard to judge her. So anyways, this is a really great book. I really recommend this for anyone who wants to read a classic. I don't know if this should be the first classic you read, but I really recommend reading this. But as usual with any classic, I recommend you read the abridged version first before you read the full version. Okay, anyways, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much, and I will see you in another video.